Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be my full review of the Wales Wallhead pad. I know a lot of people have been asking me a lot of questions about the pad, my initial impressions, and in this segment I want to give you just that. When I took this mouse pad out of the box, it definitely gives you a breath of fresh air in the sense that you kind of get the impression that you are getting a high quality mouse pad. You're not getting something that feels like your typical cloth pad, something that you're getting out of a big box store for the most part. In terms of quality, it is definitely a higher class, a higher tier quality than most mouse pads in big box stores. And I got that impression just specifically from the feeling of the surface and the stitching around all four edges of the pad. The stitching is very good. It is pretty much level to the pad, but I do have to say my initial impression out of the box was that this pad was literally the same surface as a Odin Infinity. And putting them both side by side, one next to the other, swapping back and forth, I can't really tell too much of a difference between the actual surface and the playability of both. But over long-term use, I do feel that the Wallhead might be ever so slightly more controlled, and the Odin Infinity V2 might be a little bit faster than the Wallhead Beluga. I do love the depth of the pad. It definitely gives an option to those looking for more depth if you need it in your play area. And certainly, of course, you will need that desk space size for this particular size of the Wallhead Beluga pad. But overall, the surface is something that is definitely going to be quite durable. And the foam underneath, I would say, is kind of similar to what I felt with the Aqua Control Sakura. I think the foam and the padding is probably on par to that. It's nothing like the Padsmith pad where you have a little bit more foam to push into, and definitely nothing like a Artisan Hayate Otsu or an Artisan Hien in soft or X soft. The pad foam is, when you push hard, you definitely get some play on it, but not anything that you can easily get your mouse down into for a little bit extra control. But of course, that level of density provides more consistency just through your general strides. And if you don't need that extra level of control by sinking your mouse into the pad, it is a very consistent pad. I do want to get into some gameplay. I personally feel that I played very well on the Wallhead Beluga. It is definitely, I would say, in my class of those hybrid pads that I would put at what I personally prefer, both with PTFE and glass. I think it feels great for both. I do think that those looking for a very, very speedy pad are not necessarily going to fall in love with the Wallhead Beluga, and those looking for a super, super muddy control pad are definitely not going to fall in love with the Wallhead Beluga. It's definitely something that keeps a nice balance between the two, but let's get into the gameplay. I personally think that I am not lacking anything in my gameplay on the Wallhead Beluga. It is definitely the type of pad, the type of speed that I like, a very good balance, not anything that is muddy, I don't feel a tug, and not anything that is slippery at the end of my range of motion. That is, when I flick to a target, I don't want my mouse kind of wiggling around for half a second, a millisecond, anything. I want to be able to flick and have full control at the end of my range of motion. I have this pad next to the Odin Infinity, the newest version of the Odin Infinity in black, and honestly, to the touch, they both are very, very similar, and the stitching on both is comparable. I know the Whale had a lot of male bravado on Twitter, kind of attacking Odin on their stitching, but really, in my personal opinion, just coming from a consumer, coming from a player who's using the pad, there isn't anything I would gain from one over the other in terms of stitching. They both feel good on my skin. I would say that the Beluga stitching is a tiny, tiny bit thinner and a tiny bit more level to the actual surface of the pad. But as far as what is important, the surface area itself, very similar to the touch, very similar in terms of how they feel and how they play. I would say the black version of the Odin Infinity is a hair bit rougher than the white Beluga, but in terms of how they play, again, the Odin Infinity I feel is a little bit faster on dynamic and just a little bit faster as well on static. Nothing that is a huge leap. And still, when it comes to the king of stitching, nothing ever comes quite close yet to the artisan level of stitching. There are some really nice things coming out from Lethal Gaming Gear with their Pro line, but the artisan stitching is definitely still leagues ahead of the stitching on pads like the new Aqua Controls, the Odin Infinity, as well as the Wallhead. And another pad that is very similar to the Wallhead Beluga is the Aqua Control 2. I have the Sakura edition here. The stitching is very similar to the Beluga. The Beluga, again, might be a hair bit more level to the surface, a hair bit thinner than my Sakura 2. I personally think the foam density and the foam material used on both of these pads is identical. The bases seem identical to me as well, but the actual texture of this pad might even be closer to the Aqua Control 2 than the Beluga with the Odin Infinity. Again, my Infinity, there was a clear difference in hand feel as well as speed. The Aqua Control 2, as far as how the surface material looks, it looks the same as what the Beluga is using. When I rub my fingers on the Beluga, I feel a little bit faster than the Aqua Control 2, but these are two very similar surfaces. So really you have to ask yourself if it is worth picking up a pad that is similar to some other flavors on the market. So guys, that is it for this review of the Wallhead Beluga. This is definitely a nice pad. It is a nice surface. The durability of the pad seems great. I could definitely use this, and I have, for long ranked grinding sessions in Apex, or use this on tournament day and not ever feel like I would have an issue being hindered with the actual surface itself. The only negative thing I can speak of to this particular surface is that there are a lot of similar flavors on the market, and if you already own one, you might not necessarily want to jump ship and head over to the Beluga instead of the one that you're already on. The Aqua Control 2, the Padsmith, the Locust Pad, the Odin Infinity, all really good hybrid pads on the market and all very similar to the Wallhead Beluga. There are little variations here and there, but again, you're not going to get a massive increase in your performance going from one or the other. So stick to a design that you like. If you like the depth of this pad and you like the Wallhead, go for it. I mean, again, it is a great pad, but if you're living in the US and you have to pay that additional shipping and you get into that territory of a artisan priced pad, I think I would recommend you to stay, if you already own one of the other pads, to stay on one of those and to save your money, because there's not anything extremely different with the Wallhead compared to those other surfaces. Again, a really, really nice pad, just not something I think that you need in your life if you already own one of the other flavors. I hope that helped, guys. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Peace.